afternoon session, which is Women in Design and Architecture. So our guests will be joining us shortly on stage. So I'm going to, I will call them out. So I feel like someone who's running a beauty pageant. We now have arriving with us, Tomi Olatumbode. Tomi runs Spazio Ideale. We now also have joining us Mwamaka Okoye. Mwamaka is the founder of Dula Group, and in the pink we have Sandra Idoho. And Sandra is the founder and chief executive of Villa Bella Designs. So I think one of the things that would be a good way for us to discuss and to start off with is, I'm sure a lot of you here might have ideas of what it is to be an interior designer. And we were chatting before in the green room about this, and there are oftentimes a lot of assumptions that you have to have a lot of money behind you, you have to know everybody in Lagos, you have to have some fune for your business to actually run. So I would like us to hear directly from these ladies who have all got very successful firms of how they started out their careers within the space. So I will start with Mwamaka.
Thank you very much for that question. So great to be here, Mazi, and great to meet you all. I'm so excited to talk about interior design, and thank you, EcoBank, for doing this. So how we started our business, I was living in the US, and I came back for a holiday, and I just heard there was a project available, and I went and looked at it and made a presentation, and I got the project. And they gave me 80% upfront. So I did the project. So I didn't put any money in. I executed the project. And then with the savings that I had from that project, I was able to, set some things up. I left. When I left the country, I got a call saying, hey, from someone who liked the work that I did, asking me when I'm coming back. And so I came back, did another project. With that, I was able to buy a vehicle and do some other things. So, and that's how we went on, just plowing back and making sure that the projects were profitable. Lots of tears, but that's how I started.
And Sandra, that's really interesting.
Hi. Okay, mine started very organically. I started my business with selling throw pillows. Now, how I started selling throw pillows is another story entirely. So I made throw pillows for myself, and then I placed the throw pillows in the car and went in for a church service. Now, when I came out, I saw a group of women surrounding my car, and I was like, is my car burning? What's happening? So I ran to the car, and I saw a group of women, and they're like, oh, the pillows in the car, is it for sale and everything? And the Igbo woman in me, I was like, yes, so, these pillows are for sale. And honestly, one of the women bought all the pillows on the spot and proceeded to order more. Now, when I went to because then I was the delivery person, I'm the accountant, I'm the everything. So when I went to deliver to the woman, she was like, oh, like you have lovely fabrics for your pillows. Can you reupholster my sofa? And that's how I started organically. So I reupholstered her sofa. Her friend came and like, hurry, this your old chair is now new. What happened? And that's how, people started introducing, me to the business. And I started my business with not much. Like I said, I made throw pillows for myself. And from there, everybody's there referring, okay, she can do furniture, and so with time, I knew that this was a business that I now had to, structure properly. So that's how I started my business.
It's fascinating. I love that story of how a product that was initially for yourself, you just saw a market opportunity with these ladies after church. And also, similarly with Mamak, I love this idea of starting with the one project. Sometimes we can stop ourselves from starting because we're waiting to have 3 or 4 customers already lined up, 3 or 4 big clients. But from that, building a reputation. And over to you, Tomi. So how did you start Spazio Diale?
So I love Sandra's story. I think that's quite interesting. For me, slightly different but similar. So I studied computer science in school, and I was working at the time for Ericsson after school. But I knew what I wanted to do even while I was in school. So during like holidays, I was interning with like interior designers and architects. And at some point, I'm like, okay, I would rather just take the plunge. So I took all of my savings from working. I think I had worked for about 2 years at that time. Took all of that savings from working and then went to design school in Italy. So I sponsored myself to school with all of my savings. Got back, got a job with an interior design firm in Ghana, and I worked in Ghana for a while and then came back. And by the time I was done with being myself, being very unserious, because people were wondering, and my parents were wondering, or my mom was wondering, what exactly is wrong with this girl just deciding to leave a very high-paying job to say she wants to go and study interior design. When I got back, I think I had less than 60K in total, because I'd already spent all of my money in school. And I got back, there was a training in church, it was called DLA. And I went for that training, and there were groups, I think, and I was in the interior design group. And people were like, oh, you know a lot about this interior design. I'm like, I studied the interior design, right, in Italy. And there was someone there who was like, oh, there's a project I'd like you to check. And then what I did was helped the person design. So it wasn't even like a formal job. But I remember all I had then was like 60K. So the city was just taking me there and back. And I was just needing to just like transport and stuff. And I did that first job for him, and it was good. And then over time, people saw the work and then started referring me. Basically, that's it. I think the lesson is, which is the same thing with Sandra, whatever life throws at you, just start with what you have, really. There is no perfect start, I believe, yeah.
There is no perfect start, but also there was an interesting thread there of leaving the well-paid job, but then choosing to invest in yourself with the additional training you did overseas, I believe in Florence.
Yes.
Which
yes,
also
Florence.
brings me, so I'm going to ask, we already spoke about this, specific questions to each one of our panelists that speak to their journey, but also this is a session for all of you. So if you have a burning question or based on something they may say, please, at the end, there will be an opportunity for you to have Q&A. But just, it's interesting because Tomi, we hear this story, I'm hearing training in Ghana, after training in Florence, you then went to Ghana. And with Spazio Diale, you have very much created a pan-African organization. You have a presence in Dubai, you have a presence in South Africa, you yourself are sometimes located between Southeast Asia and Lagos. I want to ask you, why was it so important for you to create a vision that translated in other territories? What was it about your own design philosophy that you felt it was really important that you had a presence and you were articulating that on a continent based wide?
Could you repeat the question?
Why was it so important for you as someone who is in all these multiple locations? You're here in Lagos, but you also have the space, you also have a presence in South Africa, a presence in Dubai. And I just was curious to know, why was it so important that you had that impact and that footprint, that you weren't just in one location, although obviously by heritage you are Nigerian?
Okay, so that's clear. So I think it's a mixture of two things, right? First of all is either you call it the opportunities life throws at you and what you do with it. So first of all, the first would be mindset. So I think personally I've been more of a global person. Like, if you can do it, why not? So it's more of a why not, right? And then I was personally thrown a unique challenge, which I think for most people might destroy them, where when I got married, my husband got relocated out of the country. And typically what most people will do, which I've seen for every other family that has been in the same situation, is they close down their business and then move and then try to start something. But with my husband, for example, not staying in one location every time, for me, I think I found the challenge as an opportunity to grow. So first of all, the challenge was, how do I still maintain the business right here in Lagos and not be in Lagos? And that took a lot. First of all, reading a lot of books. I think one of my favorite things, for those that know me, is I love to read. I spend my weekends reading one book or the other, asking a lot of questions from people that know. And then I think the third would be just daring to do it. And I believe that the work that we do at Spazio is good enough, not just good enough, it's excellent, because at least one of the things we say is that we do exceptional design and we execute excellently. One of the standards in which we benchmark is that whatever it is we do needs to be, you should be able to take the work that we do here, put it in another location, and then it fits. Not that, oh, it looks like, that looks like made in Nigeria, it's not that good, it's not good quality. And with that mindset, right, so it's able to actually still grow into other countries and still be able to deliver the same work. So for example, the design we do in other countries are made here in Nigeria. It's not like we have a different set of designers. We might have different sets of executors in those countries, but design is purely by the team here in Nigeria. So you have the team here in Nigeria doing work in Cape Verde, doing work in South Africa, doing work in Dubai. And it just shows that Nigerians can also do great work when it comes to design. And why not? Really, yeah.
I think we'd all agree here that Nigerians can indeed great design and can do something that is of any level globally. I think we need to give ourselves a round of applause, but maybe I'm hyping Nigeria. And I want to ask, which sort of ties onto that philosophy, that idea of we can do everything, and we can do everything from our own lens. And Wamak, I want to zone in on you with this, because obviously when I did my research prior to this afternoon, you describe yourself as a storyteller. You also describe yourself, and I quote, as having a design philosophy that centers storytelling and seeing design as a fuel for social change. So I want to speak to that if you can expand for us here, this notion of design as a storytelling device, a modality for storytelling, and design as a way that we can fuel social change.
Thank you for that question, Mazi. That's a deep question. It took me a while to coin that, thinking through. And the reason being was I had to engage in a lot of introspection, because I do a lot of things. So I've been blessed, maybe people will say I'm multi-talented, and trying to understand the thread, that ties in all the different things that I do. I realized that I like to tell stories, not my stories, other people's stories. So as a designer, you're a consultant. You come into someone's space, or I come into someone's space, whether it's a residence or an office. If it's an office, they have a brand story. They have a journey. And being able to elicit that information from them and project it in an aspirational manner is storytelling, so that by the time a person moves through their space, they get it. They understand where they're coming from, understand what they do, and understand where they're going. It's storytelling. Without actually saying anything physically, you're basically going through an experiential design. And so I realized that in most things, that was what I was trying to do. And so that's the medium that I'm using, space, telling story through space. I write as well, and I interview as well. And so in that, again, I'm telling stories. I'm very curious about people. And the beautiful thing about this that I have discovered, when you ask questions, you discover that no two people are alike. And then I'm able at those times to connect with them and understand things that I probably would not have identified with originally or initially. So I discover humanity, and that's how I'm a storyteller. Now, with social change, how does that drive social change? Mainly, I've designed commercial spaces and then some residential, now moving into residential. I realized that when you design, for example, an office space, you have a responsibility to think about the well-being of the workers, to think about their mood. There's a project we had, for example, it was System Specs. And when they showed me their site, it was just hard concrete everywhere. And then they wanted it to, they had such aspirations. And I was trying to figure out how can this site work with this? Because when people come in, Lagos is very hard. Lagos is tough. It's just a concrete jungle. And so with each project that I do, like in System Specs, one of the things we try to do is to use biophilic design, which is nature, love of nature, light, water, plants, to change the mood and the behavior of people. There's something called the glass effect, the glass windows effect. It was, I think, in New York, when Rudolph Giuliani was the mayor, the crime rate was so high. And what they did was just went and fixed up the neighborhood, fixed the broken glass, and crime rate went down drastically by over 30%, I believe. So with design, you can influence behavior. And so when you realize that as a designer, it gives you a sense of responsibility to ensure that you're curating spaces that make people operate at their optimum level and work better together.
That's very interesting, this idea of design actually changing the mood music and actually changing a whole society, like crime rates going down. And, I want to also now direct the question to Sandra regarding design, because what we've seen at Viva Bella, and I think the name itself, Beautiful Life, sort of gives a clue. And if anyone follows Sandra on social media, you will see that she has very much become the epitome of an elevated living experience. So the clue is in the name, and the clue is also in the presentation today. But I also want to talk about something about those videos regarding design, where also the fact that you have soft furnishings that people can buy, as well as those who actually engage you for full residential projects. This idea of, in a way, educating people of how to have an enhanced living experience. It's one thing to have the bank balance, but what I've noticed and observed, especially with your experiential center, is you're using design as a 360 method to teach people about enhanced experiences. Can you expand upon that and why it was important for you to create a niche in that space?
Basically, it's very important for me to help people understand how they can live in their spaces, either through, creating that atmosphere that kind of elevates your well-being, elevates your way of living and, how you interact in the space. So this really informed us, designing an experience center, because this wasn't something that, I have ever seen, in Nigeria or, but I got that inspiration from my travels, because I do travel a lot, and every time I would travel and go into maybe an interior studio or an interior office, I would be immersed, It wasn't about, oh, come and buy throw pillow or come and buy, come and buy anything. It was always an experience of, oh my God, this, studio understands what it means to live well. So that inspired the design of the Experience Center, where we created a place where our clients could actually come and experience how we design for them. Most importantly for us was for our clients to actually come and feel the made in Nigeria furniture pieces, because most of our furniture pieces are actually made in Nigeria. 90% of our pieces are made in Nigeria. So it was very important for me to, you know, help our clients understand that you can actually get quality in Nigeria, and this informed the Experience Center. So in addition to people coming to experience what it feels like, you know, touching the bed, laying on the bed, your feet on the rug, you know, and just bouncing on our sofas and seeing that this is real, this is life, and this can be made in Nigeria. It helped us kind of also buttress our points that you can get quality made in Nigeria that can elevate your everyday lifestyle. So, you know, that was what informed the Experience Center.
Thank you so much. And I just want to now draw on that idea of an elevated lifestyle and also being here in Nigeria. Let's keep it 100. Let's now go on to those challenges, because I feel it's really important when we're talking about design. Design is also about solving problems, and that to solve problems, one has to concede and admit that there are problems, because we can have the head in the sand, and also with those problems comes opportunities to be creative, to come up with the solution, to have that gratification of coming up with the solution. So this question is open to all of you, so feel free to jump in and as well. You know, when one thinks about designing in this environment, obviously the challenges of sourcing, the challenging pain points of supply chain challenges, forex fluctuation, even educating your clients. Maybe you might be the first time they've interfaced and had an interior designer of the process. This is not like calling your tailor and 24 hours later you have a dress or a trad ready for you. And then also the other side, which is looking at the environment and the ecosystem we have with artisanal carpentry, artisanal methodologies of making, materials as well that you have that are only found in here. How have you segued all of that with, of course, the classical design knowledge, and how have you overcome both the challenges and the opportunities that working in this particular environment here in sub-Saharan Africa, Nigeria specifically, but also I know you all have projects across the continent. How has that been for you?
All right, I'll jump in.
Yes, please do, Marika.
I'll jump in. So I mentioned that I came in for holiday and I did a project. It went reasonably well, at least well enough that I was called for another project. It went well. I came for the second project, and you know, I was more interested in being an interior designer in the sense of the word, because I went to design school, and you know, as a designer, you just design, and then people will do the work. And so I, contracted the work out, you know, to the people that told me they learned tiling in Italy, Fabu, but I had no idea. And, you know, the furniture to someone, and I was supervising, I'll go check. And a week before the project was due, I had visited the person doing the furniture, and they said it was ready now, and it looked like it was ready. But then, you know, the job is almost done. So he thought, I'll just take another project quickly, and dumped my work. And so a few days to the project being due, he wouldn't take my calls. And I remember lying on my bed crying because my client was calling me. I had already spent the money paid for the work, and I was explaining that I had actually, you know, I had commissioned the work and I had seen it being done, and I believed it was going to be ready until I drove to where he was and found out he was doing something else. I mean, you cannot imagine, because she kept asking me, please, if you spent that money, just tell me the truth. You know, my husband gave me the money, and she was pleading. And it was a horrible experience for me. And that is how come we started manufacturing furniture. Because I figured that I needed to have something that I could control if I was going to collect money from people to be sure that I can deliver. I also realized that I needed to then, the value chain is too broad. Because when I started, I was using pure wood for things. And then I would go to the market to get wood. And they would tell me, you cannot select the wood. So you have wood that wasn't properly seasoned, some have green things. And they say, you have to take it. It doesn't really matter. And then I remember I finished doing work after we've sanded it, made it look so good. And a client comes to me and says, why doesn't it look as good as this? And it's a pressed board. So the client didn't even know the difference between the wood and the press board. And so I had to look at the market and say, okay, it's not about what I want to do, it's about what the market is ready for.
What's available.
And so I moved to press board. So you can see the kind of adjustments. If I was going to then be doing wood, I would have to have my own kiln, which means that I have to take a wider range, part of the value chain. So, and that is how I kept niching and zeroing and getting closer and closer to take a part of the value chain that I know that I specialize in this, I can control, and then we then provide services to other architects. So we manufacture furniture, and so some interior designers, interior architects, and architects may get projects and come to us, and we will do the furniture for them and deliver. And then, they should feel comfortable that we're going to get the work done. They don't have to stand or sit over us. So those are some of the things that I've had to do. Now, I've also had to train the people that I work with, and a lot of the young ladies, and for a great part is female architects that I work with, and there are reasons for that, which we can talk about another time. So I take them to the market. I take them to Mushi, I take them to different places. And when they go to the market, they're like, and I say, you have to come in, you have to understand how to source. Because if you're not importing and some things are contraband, how do you deliver value if you buy from someone who is already in VI and you're reselling? Think about it, it's a business. So you have to go to the source. And you have to have your link. So sometimes I'm driving down the road, I'm passing Oshodi, and I see something interesting. I tell my driver, pull aside, stop. And I jog down, I take a picture, I collect the number, I ask them questions, I look at it, and I save it, I take a picture. And I don't know when I'm going to need it. But I do that when I'm abroad as well. I see something I like, I take a picture. So, there's a lot of dynamism that has to go into it to really deliver a good product for your client. Thank you.
No, thank you. And there are lots of gems there that you have casually dropped. I hope people are taking notes. But I also really want to pose that question to you, Tomi. Have you found specifics, have any specific anecdotes that sort of speak to that challenge of the environment and responding to the demands, both of clients and also of yourself as a practitioner wanting to deliver the best sort of work?
Thank you. So I think this is similar to Wamaka's story. I think anyone here is going into the interior design business or any business at all, to be honest, you'd face tons of challenges. Obviously, there's the obvious one where you have artisans who who don't give you the same quality that you expect. I'll give an example. A recent high-profile project we just delivered for a client. You sign a contract. So for us to mitigate things like this, what we do is for our vendors, we have very good processes. You sign a contract, you have a very rigorous interview process. So for you to even work with us, you would do like this, right? Because we interview you, we check the work you've done before and all of that. And so there was this guy that we checked, did all of that, passed, and we gave the job to him, right? For our profile project. And then there were timelines, we follow up, we check. And for some reason, 2 weeks before, my team is here, they know, 2 weeks before we're meant to deliver the project, the guy was telling me, I was at Ekpe checking something, and I was like, oh, I'm bringing the glass from, I can't remember where it was. I'm on the way. Me, that was far away. Around like 10 o'clock, I left Ekpe where I was driving. I went to site. He said he had left where it was, I can't remember the area, somewhere before Ekpe at 3 p.m. I was on the way to site. At 3 p.m., me, I left at 10. I got to site at 11. The guy was not there. Call his number, no number. And they were meant to deliver next week. And this is glass. Now, for those who understand how glass partitions are done, you need about technically 2 weeks minimum, because you get the glass and then you have to toughen the glass to ensure that it is a toughened glass before you install etc. There's all of that process. And then you have cases like that where vendors just disappoint, either in the fact that they're not responsible enough to give you good quality, or that they don't just deliver right on time, because time is important to your clients. And at least for the work that we do, right, people think, oh, all you're just doing is making maybe a house beautiful or making an office nice. Not necessarily. It is helping that client grow their business. So maybe they have an important meeting that they have to do, that's why they're doing this. Or they need their employees to feel better in the space, that's why they're doing that. And for them, time is money. So for that case, for example, what we had to do, my team didn't sleep, we had to get someone in, paid extra, for example. And there are cases where for you to deliver the best to your client, you might want to make a loss. And that's one thing we say. For us in Spatio, the team knows this, we say this word. If I shout it, I'm sure they will respond the rest. Reputation outweighs profit for us. Every time, reputation outweighs profit. So we didn't care whatever it is we had to spend. We told the client we're going to deliver on A. Whatever we're going to do, we're going to do it to ensure that we deliver exactly the time and the same quality to the client. Right? So we made a few calls. Everybody was there the next day, which was Sunday. We got someone in, right, who was able to fix it for us quickly. But that's one simple example. But even aside that, what I have personally noticed, which is also informing some of the new projects that we are doing at Spatio, so it would be nice if you follow us. We are doing new projects to actually solve that, is that there is technically a difference between the quality you'd find abroad and Nigeria. And I wouldn't lie, it's true. And the difference, and the reason is, which I've noticed is, first of all, not to shade anyone, we don't live in a society that appreciates excellence. So give an example, like I said, not to shade anyone. The roads are bad. So if you don't have access to a good road in the first place, how do you know that the floor you're doing in the space needs to be straight?
Level.
Right? Or a very good level. Right? So you're working with artisans who have grown in an environment where excellence is not the norm. You're working with people who are, even me myself, I had to learn it, right? Learn what excellence is, learn that if something needs to be straight, it's meant to be a straight line. And that needs to be solved. And I think one thing that helps is exposure, right? Seeing that this is how it is done in other places, therefore, and then you can bring that in. And that's what we've done in Spatio. So one thing we also do is that as much as possible, we ensure that our team go outside the country to also see for themselves. Because there's a difference between me telling you that this is how it should be, than you going there and seeing it yourself that, this is how it can be. And that's one of the things we're trying to solve also in terms of our platform and our social, in terms of ensuring people have that exposure. Because I think the more people are exposed to good quality and excellence, the better we can deliver excellence to others, right? Or to our clients or to people that work with us. So that's it.
I think that's a very, very important point where you said, reputation outweighs profit, and also tying in with this idea, notion of exposure, something that you talked about, Sandra, a lot about your love of travel and creating the experiential space so that your clients can even understand what excellence looks like. Because if they've navigated a potholed street, even if it's in a lovely car, just actually being immersed in that. And I wanted to speak to you, in this environment, what are the challenges that you feel on your design journey so far that you have overcome? If you'd like to share with our guests here.
We've experienced so many, challenges, from shoddy jobs from artisans to clients who don't understand that we are trying to so many challenges. But I will speak to production, just like they said. It's very important for you to groom your team to be able to understand that excellence is what is required. Nigerian workers are like, it's okay like that, it's okay like that. You get a lot of that. A lot of people think, so let's just manage it. But it's important for you to kind of make your team understand that there's nothing impossible. At Viva Bella Designs, we say nothing is impossible. You know, you can make this work, you can make it straight, you can make it look better. So we're very big on, you know, constant, you know, training and constant quality control. So like earlier on in my, you know, when we started the journey, we would have, you know, furniture pieces that are wonky or shaking or pieces that are not sturdy enough. And one thing we did to kind of like mitigate that challenge is to put quality control at different stages of the project, of the production of the pieces. The truth is that artisans in Nigeria are stuck in their ways. So as an interior designer, you know, starting your business or maybe producing in Nigeria, you have to put like a process or structure in place, you know, at every, you know, phase of your, I'm using furniture production as an example now. At every phase of your furniture production. So during framework, you have, you know, your team go check it out. During upholstery, during as little as piping. Madam, is they okay now? No, it's not they okay. You know, so when you put that process of quality control in place, you're able to, you know, monitor every step of the way to produce something that actually meets international standard. It doesn't take much, but as an interior designer who is in charge of your creative process, you know, being also knowledgeable, so you never stop learning, immersing yourself in every process of your design business can help you, you know, spot that difference that can differentiate you from the rest. So I guess it's all about putting structure, process, and, you know, constant learning, constant training, and, you know, constantly attending shows like this.
So
you know.
Quickly speak to them.
Sorry, Ramak, you wanted to build upon something Sandra just said?
Yes.
Okay, please do.
So I've discovered that over the years, what we've been doing at House Accessories now in Julo is training people. Like that's our greatest product, a school. And we've decided to do a design institute.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
That's so interesting.
Yeah, so we've already gotten a location and then working and collaborating with other professionals, you know, that will be faculty, so that we can have a ready market. A lot of people are interested in interior design, but they don't have a place to go. You can't learn it in 3 months. That's the truth. So to help the ecosystem and help ourselves too, because now you have a wide range, but then everybody else, so that we can elevate the industry, we've decided to do something about it.
Oh, fantastic.
It's very, very laudatory, and it ties in very much not just with why we've gathered here, but my next question, which is again to all of you. The theme this year is how we build and how we live. And our particular conversation is centering that around women in design and architecture. Now, I know we have obviously men in the room today as well with us, and as it should be, but at the risk of being contentious, culturally and normatively in Africa, the woman is very much the heartbeat of the home. And oftentimes when you are engaging with the designer to ideate that, you are also leaning in on this idea of your home will be, you know, home is where the heart is. It's a reason why that phrase exists. How much do you feel being a woman, being a matriarch, being of that persuasion, do you think you bring to your process as a designer? Because, and how we live, how do you think that reflects that aspect of designing via that lens of consciousness?
Shall I?
Whoever wants to. Thank you.
All right. That question it touches my heart, because aesthetics And a comfortable space is very important to me personally. I mean, even my university room on campus, I spent a fortune doing it up. Now, a woman would normally be the one that curates the atmosphere of the home, typically. And when you're in your home, you're like the master of the domain or the mistress. You know, you're the one that deals with things. But then when you go out and you're now going to building, because I do construction, excuse me, it's a very misogynistic field where even the workers think that because you're a woman, they know better than you. And so there can be challenges. I remember when I first started that project, I think that the second one, there was an electrician who wasn't using a plumb. And I asked him why he wasn't using a plumb. I mean, I could see that the socket was crooked. And he said, he has a plumb. I was like, where's the plumb? He said, it's in my bag. Dude, use the plumb. And he says, you're not the one that brought me to the site, by the way, that he's working for the engineer. I mean, he can only tell me that because I'm a woman. So I had to go macho on him, and I said, get out of my sight. You will see who is paying you today. Out! And then he started begging. So, unfortunately, when you're on site, sometimes you have to go local. You have to get crazy, and it might not be something that you're accustomed to, but when you're speaking nicely, please, they just think you're speaking grammar. So it can be challenging, it can be difficult. Also, even in school, if you're getting educated, I studied architecture, where only 10% of my class was women at that time. I know it has changed, but I remember our HOD telling one to go and do fine arts, another one to go and do cooking. He asked me to go do accounting, so at least maybe he perceived I was smarter. But you can imagine being put down like that, or being made to think that, you can only do upholstery, which is a great thing, but then being pigeonholed into that, when you can actually build, you can climb the ladder and you can go to the roof and you can check stuff out. And I want to challenge women here. I say there are two types of women. As a woman, as you progress in life, there's seasons. So some women get married, they have children, things get really tough. And, maybe you get pregnant, it's difficult. So you can be the woman, and it's okay, who has an excuse every time for not getting your stuff done. Or you can buckle up. If you say you're going to play in this space, then you need to step up and get your work done. Of course, as an employer, there are things that one can do. Make it convenient for people to start earlier, like women who have young children. I give them flexible start times. Drop your children at school, come a little later, really, why are you coming at 8 o'clock? Things like that to make it more comfortable. But there are challenges for women. But women also must stand strong and say, look, I can stand toe-to-toe. Not just toe-to-toe. Women excel in the design field.
And Tumi, speaking to that idea of being, as you are, an example of design excellence and also being a woman, how do you feel that your own lens has also impacted how you work?
So, to that question, so I think in interior design, people tend to see interior design as in my opinion, a feminine industry. To be honest, one of the top interior design firms in the world are run by men. If you guys do not know, they are run by men, not women. But I think the misconception is thinking interior design is more aesthetic than functional. And interior design is, to be honest, the first thing is, same with architecture, function, then aesthetic, function first, right? And when it comes to function, it's hard work. And that's from a design perspective. So there's the design part, obviously, and then there's the execution part. But when it comes to even the design part, it's function, and that's a lot of work. First of all, you need to have the creative idea, which I think a lot of women tend to, from an aesthetic point of view, lean into. But after having that nice idea in your head of how the space looks, you have to draw it. And that is hard. And then you have to now do, first of all, you do a presentation of concept art, and then you have to do detailed drawing, and then you have to do shop drawing, and then you have to do dimensions, and then you have to do all of that. And that's hard work, right? So from that point of view, it's not because, I don't think the skill is just because we're feminine, but there's a lot of technical work that women do in that field to deliver the aesthetic that you're seeing. So people are seeing the final picture, but the amount of technical hard work that goes into it is there. And then apart from that, there is project management, which Mamaka talked about, where you're on site, you have to deal with artisans, you have to deal with other people to ensure that the work gets delivered to the quality that you expect. I think for me, being a woman in a way helps, because I think from the aesthetic side, it's easier, right? Because women are much more interested in how they look or how things look. But there is also the hard work that women have to do to ensure that they deliver good quality. And that's just on design. Now, to running a business, which is a different ballgame entirely. And then for that, for example, as a woman, you have to know the design work, you have to know how to do operations, you have to know how to do finance, you have to know how to select a team, you have to know how to grow a team, you have to know how to do processes, right? Putting up processes and systems and structures, and that's a lot of work. I think the benefit would be that women are good multitaskers, are good at multitasking, but I think that's what I'll just say. I think it has nothing technically to do with gender, but it's just, can you do the work, and do you want to do the work? If you want to do the work, that's fine. Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you, Sandra. I'd love to hear your take on this aspect of women in design and what we bring to the table.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of misconception, between what design and decor is. A lot of people feel like design is just, let's put flower on the table. Like they've said, it's a lot of back work. It's a lot of structure, HR, processes, and all of that behind the scene, even just to do a simple room, right? I feel like as women, we need to be ready. No more excuses, I think. I feel like we have a mark in this industry. We have an edge even, because apart from, that functional aspect as well, we have the soft skills. We know, what a space needs to actually be comfortable and beautiful, in addition to, the hard parts of it, which is like architecture and all of that. I feel like women should, be loud and proud in design, and don't make excuses. I think when I started my design business, I had my first kid, I went off, I came back. I had my second, I went off, I came back. So I think it's about resilience and be prepared. There's nothing special, or it's something we can do. And so, yeah, pretty much.
Yeah, I think that's very, very pertinent point, the notion of resilience. And it brings me, we've talked about being women in design, but I now want to posit us to our location. We live in a global village. We all know that people around the world are enjoying Nigerian music, they're enjoying Nigerian fashion, they're enjoying Nigerian food. You've got Michelin-starred restaurants that are run by Nigerian chefs with Nigerian food as the main event. I want to talk about Nigeria, not just Nigerian, but the African aesthetic, the African design aesthetic, the African design philosophy, our own knowledge systems and how they inform how we design. And I want to ask you all, how you feel you bring that African POV to your project. So I'll start with you, Tomi, and go this way.
Okay, I think that's an interesting technical question, just so you know. So we do have an African point of view in terms of design, but it's not, I don't think it has been well documented, and it hasn't been widely known. So let's start with that. It's not well documented, it's not widely known. So a lot of people, if I ask 5 design students or architects about design styles now, I'll probably hear Japandi, I'll hear Scandinavian, I'll hear all of that, but not necessarily African. I think the only place where there is a clear aesthetic in terms of African design and is documented is South Africa. So you can always see that very clearly in their designs and how they approach design. Now, the reason why I'm giving all of this backstory is it was not until I was in South Africa did I understand fully the African design perspective and then how you can bring it into some of the work that you do. And that's because it's not documented. Even in design school that I went to, there was nothing on African design, right? We had like, I think, 30 design styles. None had any African aesthetic. But with exposure, which for me, I think exposure is super important, then you can see, okay, this is what it looks like, this is how you can interpret it, and then put it in your space. So one of the things we do, obviously, is when you're thinking African design is how do we live, right? Or how did we used to live? What are things that were important to us, community, and then how do you take that, deconstruct that, and then put it in the project? And I think there are multiple ways where we've done that. I think one of the projects where you would see that clearly known, I can't remember all, is Reliance HMO, for example, in terms of how we deconstructed that. I think there are other areas like that, but practical example, and this is, I'm going slightly technical for the designers here. So when our olden days, I didn't meet that day, so I can't really talk about it because I didn't meet it, right? We used to store water in a clay pot, right, to make it cold. That was a form of refrigeration, for example.
Right.
Just taking that and extrapolating that. Or our hall or meeting room used to be the town square, right, where people would gather and then at communities, right? Or mat, for example, where people used mats as their, well, in this case, we'll call them rugs now. Just taking all of those, if you go back into history to understand how we used to live and then how you can extrapolate that and then add that into the design that you do. For anyone who wants to learn about African interior design, I would say you should start with South Africa because it is well documented. But what I have done in terms of what we do is, at least what we've done in Spatio is to understand how we used to live, right? I think we have that very clearly known. Then extrapolate that into each of the work that we do. And that's, the few, to clarify, there are few things that we selfishly do when we design. So obviously, first thing is function, and then client objectives, and then it is what we want to do after that, which we layer. One of the things is, okay, we want to ensure we bring a bit of Nigeria or Africa into it. And you see that in some of maybe that selection of the fabric or the patterns, right, that we use, or for example, maybe a pattern in the wallpaper that has to speak with Africa or something like that. Like I said, I think one of the projects where you would see this interpreted very clearly, because the client gave us a very wide arm, is the Reliance HMO project, where there were a lot of very clear African influences in that. That's what I would say, yeah.
Thank you. And Mohamaka, I'd love to hear from you, your notion of the African POV in your design process.
Yeah, when you asked this question, I've been thinking about it. So there are two things. I think this is where interior design and architecture meets. I believe design must be contextual for it to be good design. If it's not contextual, then you're not actually solving the problem. So when you talk about being contextual, for example, I would bring down to Nigeria, because when you say Africa, what is Africa? Do we have one universal design language? Maybe there's some similarities, but I would say no. And so I'll use the context of Nigeria.
Absolutely, absolutely.
And Tommy mentioned like the clay pot. I think about, so I drank from the clay pot when I went to see my grandmother. That's how she stored the water. Yes, and we went down to the springs and we fetched water and brought it and poured it in the clay pot, and it stayed cool. And she had two different ways of disposing, recycling. They had the green leaves and the things that could be, what's the word, biodegradable. They went into a pit called abubo, and then the other things were separated. So there were things that were being done. And then there was something called the obi, which is where you welcome people. So like my grandfather's compound, you will come in and the compound had, you know, the different rooms for the wives, and then you had the obi, and then they had the shrine. And you see with modern design, when people are designing now, we don't take into account the way that we live. So you just design a house, you put the living room, everybody comes into the living room, but then people that you may not be that intimate with just come and visit you, which was how it was in those days. But then they stay in the obi, they don't stay inside your house. So then there were things like the overhangs, you know, for tropical architecture. The openings, you know, they were not so big. So some will be bigger, maybe the door, so you can create the Venturi effect. So all these things mean something. And so when you take something that's Western and just design, and there's not the practical consideration for our tropics, which must take a huge chunk of what we design, even with the materials, you know, you design a heavy velvet chair, and it's so hot, that begins to create a problem. So that's where the context comes in. Now, so we start with the form and the function. Then you begin to talk about the aesthetics, which the fabrics, the patterns, the motifs, being sure that it connects with the soul, the colors. We worked on a project, it was Terragon, and their slogan was, "No one knows Africa like we do." So we brought things from Kenya, from all over the world, you know, from all over Africa for them, but also we took the context of Lagos. And we had like the relaxation room was called Bar Beach, and we created it, made it like a beach. And then we had road signs, like Lagos road signs. And then we had a stadium, which was their auditorium. But then we took nuances, you know, from Lagos, the context, because they were in Lagos. Even there's a project in System Specs as well. So you have a place that is chill zone, and because it was a transitory space, we had murals of like the international airport, the Oshodi interchange in the space. So making sure that wherever people are, they know that if you're in Lagos, you're in Lagos. If you're in Nigeria, you're in Nigeria. You don't forget, and you can marry it with being modern. And then we'll get mats and hang on the wall, things like that. Fabrics, you know, rugs made of Ankara, all those things, and infuse them in modern design. So you begin to form a new aesthetic, which is modern African design. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. That was absolutely really riveting. And I think what you said, which was interesting, is that utilizing Lagos, you use that as a jump off to also incorporate other elements, as you said, bringing in things from Eastern Africa. So we're almost reinterpreting and creating our own normative concerns. You can draw upon different parts of the continent. And I just want to ask that question for you, Sandra, you know, in terms of the African POV, our point of view, our way of being and doing and living, how that has also informed your design process.
Honestly, the prophet is not known at home. African design is such a, like she said, it's not something that we really explore here, let's be honest, because a lot of people are more influenced by, you know, Western culture. However, at Viva Bella Designs, what we try to do is focus on materiality. You know, like I've said, we're very pro Nigeria, we're very pro-Africa, so most of our materials are sourced within. So you have things like the wood that we can find, you know, in Nigeria. It's more about the materiality, you know, the wood, the colors, the, you know, patterns. Those are ways that we can infuse Africanism into our designs. So, you know, it's still emerging, which is such a shame, because we're so rich in materials, and, you know, so it's something that I guess we need to explore more, you know, like you guys have said and given examples, and we need to actually go way back. Like she said, it's not properly documented. You can see bits and pieces of African design in Kenya or South Africa. Those are very predominant. But here, what we try to do, especially because we still try to consider the client's taste, we infuse it through color, art. We have such rich arts, you know, in Nigeria, and then material. So the materiality speaks to the culture, you know, at the end of the day.
Thank you. Thank you. And I think that's all from me. It's now over to our lovely audience. And I think as you have closed us out, Sandra, this idea of speaking to the culture is very much with us. We are all of the culture. So if anyone has a question, you can raise your hand, and I'm sure one of our technician friends will bring a mic to you. Don't be shy. We have the lady up here at the front, please, in the blue. Thank you.
Thank you. Hello, everyone.
Hello.
Hi.
And nice to meet you all.
Nice to meet you too.
Okay, so my name is Salamoto Ilia, and I'm an architect. So I'm not much into interior design, but mostly construction. And of late, I realized I'm done constructing, and then to finish the space, it's a problem. I've maybe invited a few interior designers, or I would say interior decorators, because I made to understand, like while in school, for you to be an interior designer, you have to have like some background of architecture, you know? So it was a bit of, I don't know, back and forth for me, you know, having to bring a lot of people, and made to understand, you don't actually understand how to design spaces, the functionalities and all that, you know. So most of them were like interior decorators. So I just finished, in fact, I just finished a project. I don't live in Lagos, I live in Abuja. And anytime I want to get inspired, I come to Lagos, you know. So I give it to you guys for setting the pace high, yeah. So, in fact, I was just thinking of how do I move to Lagos? Do you understand? How do I get myself more in Lagos than in Abuja? So, sorry, back to what I was saying. So it's a big challenge for us down in Abuja, you know, for us to get things done when they should be done and how they should be done properly. I also can relate to talking about going to sites and they're seeing you as the head architect, or they're seeing you in construction, and they wouldn't even listen to what you have to say, or they wouldn't even go by certain things. Sometimes they tell you, madam, this thing go work like that, you know, or you're being too difficult because you want a particular, like you want precision, you want it finished properly, you know. I just finished a job for the military, let me put it that way, and you have some of them that would come and just start shouting, this thing is not done well, that thing is not done well. So how do we, my question is, how do we, what's the word now? How do we get like artisans to be able to listen, to be able to adhere to exactly what we want them to do? One. Two, how do we source for materials? Because I remember I had to go all the way to China to get things into the country, like the furnishing and all that. And it took an arm for you to be able to clear with the customs, for you to be able to get things from Apapa all the way to Abuja, the transportation and all that. So I just want to be guided, and I wouldn't mind to be a mentee to any one of you. Yes, that's it.
So, any of you would like to take that
Yes,
answer?
certainly. So your question is twofold. How do you source for artisans? You go to, when you see work that is done well, find out who did it. get the number. If you're driving past somewhere, there's a construction site, the work looks good, stop. You have to go out of your way because you have to build your own database. Over the years, you'll find out that you have people that you have groomed, and you keep adding to that. I'm of the opinion that you cannot train a bad workman. So if you have a workman that doesn't take pride in their work, you need to cut ties like early on. It's one thing not to know, but to be excited when you're corrected because you're getting better. And you see that person, they don't grumble, and they take care in what they're doing. They're not doing some slapdash job. So once we realize that you're not someone who is amenable to correction and someone who is prone to excellence, we won't work with you. So having that mindset to understand that you have to build your own database. I have people that I've been working with since 2007, 2008. A few of them I've carried along. Some, we might not be working together, but I can call them whenever. And there's some that I will never work with again because I now understand that you cannot train a bad workman. The person might not be that skilled, but they have their propensity, the desire to get better. So that's one. Stop at sites, ask around if you have friends that are doing work and the work is good. Say, hey, please, can you share that contact with me? And many people are generous with that. That's what I've found. Then, regarding sourcing of materials, I think I already alluded to that. There's not a database. So, again, understanding, remembering you're an interior designer whenever you're around, anything that is good. So if I go to, for example, I've deconstructed this space. Whenever I go to a space, if it's well put together, you don't know why it looks good. Because it's like a symphony. You cannot hear a symphony and say, oh, the pianist is really good. You hear one sound. And so you have to be intentional about looking at the pieces. I would go under tables and take pictures of how they built stuff. And I will file it away so that I can use it another time. And I will ask, where did you get this? Then I mention, if I'm in the car, I'm going somewhere, I see something interesting, I will pull aside and I will get the information, I will take the number, I will take the picture, and I'll be looking for a project to use it on. Now, of course, I will also go for international fairs. There's like Index Dubai and some other places, and get the catalogs as well. So having that plethora of information, depending on your timeline, but also understanding, at least for me, there's the issue of ethical business and the things that are on the exclusive list of the customs. So knowing what you can legally import and what you can't. So that's how I choose to do my business. And it's unfortunate that with these things we're saying, many government business, not governments, parastatals will say they don't want made in Nigeria. I can tell you a number of them that I have worked with that will tell you that, or we want to work with, and they say they don't want made in Nigeria. They want you to import everything. That's unfortunate. Thank you.
I think I want to add a tip to sourcing. There's so many ways to source within, because, like I said to you, 90% of our materials and what we use for our projects are sourced within. I'm very pro, buy in Nigeria and, do things in Nigeria to meet international standards. You as a designer can take out time to go to different markets. For instance, Mushi is like the design hub, yes, or for building materials in Nigeria. It's just, for instance, like when you travel abroad as well, or maybe you go to Miami, there's a design district. We have the same in Nigeria. I'm sure there is even in Abuja as well. Take out time to find, for instance, Orile is where you get tiles, Italian tiles, Spanish tiles, because the truth of the matter is that these people are also importing those things. There's not, except, made in Nigerian tiles that are there. As a designer, something I do is take out time to explore the areas within the country. You will be amazed at what you can find. attend exhibitions, you know, like the design show coming up in, is it October? A lot of interior designers I find are lazy to actually go for exhibitions. There's a lot of exhibitions. There's one going on in Landmark now, like contract builders, contractors. These are places where you can source for professionals. You can source for materials. You know, there's so many types of paints. A lot of people think Dulux is the only paint. But actually, there is a paint company, Nigerian paint company, that produces beautiful paint that looks like Italian paint, you know, like stucco or all of that. You can explore that by, you know, making it your business to know when these conferences are happening, like this Eco Bank one that is done yearly. There's so many shows that happen within that we need to start to explore and look within. I'm so pro-Nigeria. There are materials here that we can source, you know, in the markets, Orile, Mushi, Oshodi. There's so many places that a lot of people you think about and be like, ah, that place stinks. But my sister, there's gold there. You know, like leather. If you're looking for 100% animal skin, you go to Mushi, and you don't have to go to Italy. You don't have to import, because those Italians even come. I heard Louis Vuitton buys from somewhere in where is it? Cano, yeah. Louis Vuitton comes to buy, and then recently a client of mine said to me that she actually recycles plastic containers and exports to Nike, Adidas, using making their jerseys and trainers, and so we are quite rich, you know, in resources. The only thing you also have to do is sharpen your skills on how to choose timeless materials.
And that's a business idea.
So Sandra sorted sourcing for you, because
big time.
Our procurement, right? But in terms of on-site artisans, right? I'm not giving my idea. So there's someone in my team, my head of project. She's tiny. Tiny.
She's like Pepe. She's very like Pepe.
But right, she handles artisans well.
Absolutely.
And I'll just tell you what I think from where I sit, how she's been able to do that. And I think the first thing is, remember that the people you're speaking to are human, number one, first of all. And if you get that, try and know them, right? So I think if they feel, or if they know that you really care, right, they would replicate that back. Apart from the fact that what Wamaka said, you can't train someone who is bad. So definitely, if someone isn't even willing to learn, there's nothing you can do about it. But if you just start from the fact that this is someone I can relate to, and I just can talk to the person as my younger brother or my uncle, right? And you just speak to the person from that point of view and explain, and then explain why. Because sometimes you might say you want this thing straight, but they don't understand why. They don't understand how it will benefit them. Because for them, it's like, I need to get this job done and go. But if you do it well, right, the clients will be happy, you'll get more jobs, you'll be able to charge more. I would pay you more for the extra time, right? If they understand that, and then you speak to them from me, I'm speaking to my brother, right? I think that would help. And this is what I have seen, right? Because me and artisans, no, because I don't have the patience. But from my head of projects, for example, I think that's what I've seen her do consistently. And a lot of the team members in the project departments, they've learned that. And that's why we've been able to control artisans. So most of our artisans are, to be honest, extremely great to work with. Yeah.
Not to be disruptive, but there was something you said. As an architect, you said when you finish, you're looking for an interior designer. I want to address that because I wear both shoes. And I'm a co-founder and a partner in an architecture or multidisciplinary firm. It's called Design Genre. My husband is an architect. The way we work, he does a design. And as soon as he's done the layout, I get it. And I'm the one that decides how the lighting works, where the sockets and switches are, because I'm molding the space for human living. And you find out that there's a lens that architects have, and their lens is more outward than inward. The elevation has to work. So they're going to put a window where your bed head should be. Yes, and then they send it to the electrical engineer who will put the air conditioner on a perfect picture wall.
Where the TV should be.
Where the TV, yes. And so by the time you're bringing an interior designer, it's too late. So it should be from the beginning. So if you do that, your work will be easier and you have better quality spaces. So remembering and understanding that interior designers are like more of a micro level of architecture. We go a level deeper. We're the detailers. And if we understand what you're doing with the exterior, what you're trying to achieve, we will make sure it's properly lived in. It will be lived in comfortably.
Do we have any other questions? We have a lady here in the red. If you'd like to, someone can bring a mic to her in the second row. Just here. Thank you.
Hi, good afternoon, everyone. And I just want to say, first of all, thank you to all of you, because you've said a lot and you haven't whitewashed anything at all. So my question is this: how do we ensure that we're executing excellently? I know you have already mentioned how we are supposed to put in place like standard procedures and processes and all of that, but are there any other how-tos or just tips or tricks on how we can get it done and get it done very, very well?
I think how to execute excellently still lies on your 1, 2, 3 easy steps, you know, for what you want to achieve. So again, your process cannot be overemphasized. All you have to do is simplify it. For instance, you want, you know, straight tiles. First of all, find a skilled tiler. Then communicate what you need. Either you communicate with pictures, videos. In fact, sometimes I bring my YouTube, bring my iPad to site. I say, oh yeah, may we watch as this Oyibo man, they take duties, because there's nothing special about what they do abroad, to be honest. It's more about the tools and the skill, right? And sometimes a lot of these artisans may not be motivated. So you can just bring Fanta or something to site. You know, come down to the level where we are in Nigeria, and then watch YouTube videos with them, get the right tools. Most of the time is tool. Sometimes, instead of them to use grout, they'll be using gum. Most of the time, the difference between Western design and ours is just the materials and the tools, because the know-how, we know. Do you understand? And then sometimes they need a little push, an extra 1,000 naira there, an extra give your pikin. That your pikin, how far? You know, just go down to the nitty-gritty level. And that's how you do it. But first of all, have your process that you don't play with, and then come down to their level, and you will see work being done properly.
So, I'd like to add to what she said, because I would have answered that and stopped at that before. But now, something I'm very sure about is, without the people, the process is useless. So in addition to systems and process, having the right people is key. I cannot overemphasize this point. I mean, I've been recently humbled in a project that shall not be named, but some people may know, you know what it is. Having the right people is critical, because as you scale, you will need people who respect the process, understand the need for the process, who are devoted to excellence, and who are committed to a joint vision. Because when you have a design is a combination of many parts. I talked about a symphony. And sometimes you have this artisan or even supervisor who decides that they want to be a soloist on a project. Yes. And if that person doesn't fall in line, they will wreck the design. Because they're not meant to be playing solo. It's a symphony that came here. So finding the right people, and when I say the right people, I don't just mean artisans. The bigger problem is the people that will manage. And that managing has to do, they have to have the right skill set, but they also have to have the exposure. Because you cannot execute, imagine, or dream something that you have never seen. You have to see it in your mind's eye. And so the person may be trying their best, but they don't understand what you're talking about. So I too have sent my people to Dubai, and they were good designers, and they would always argue with me, too many lights. Why do you have 16 lights in the living room? Then they went to Dubai for the index fair, and they came back, and there was never an argument. They started putting, in fact, so many lights. Do you see? So exposure is important. Desire, quest for excellence, skills, then intellect, and then commitment to a vision. But all these things have to reside in the right person or people who you now build together, a group of them, to form a team. Without that, it won't work.
We have a lady in the pink glasses.
Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Olorumisimi from Lagos State University of Science and Technology. I'm studying architecture currently. And my question is this. At least from what we know of you three, you have clients on the international scale. How did you manage to sell your product, what you do, to them while remaining Nigerian, as in you did not let the made in Nigeria factor affect it? How do I put this better?
Yeah.
We understand.
Okay. Thanks.
Okay.
Do you want to go first?
So I think this would, so when you say made in Nigeria factor, the first question is, what does that mean?
I think it's the idea that
I have an
made in
assumption for
Nigeria
it.
is,
There is a stereotype about the Nigerian-made products.
yeah.
And how did you manage to put yourselves out, like put your product out there, remaining Nigerian, and not letting that stereotype manage to define your clients' perspectives of what you do?
Okay, great. So for Spati, for example, or us, where, like I said, we're in 3 countries and we've done work across multiple countries. I think it would link back to the previous question, and it's one thing: excellence. It's literally as simple as that. And excellence is a mindset. And like I said, it's a mindset. So first of all, it is: do you want to do the work, or do you want to go through the fire it will take for you to deliver excellence? Because it's not a walk in the park. It's not easy to deliver excellence. For one, you have to do processes. To do a process is not easy. It's not. A lot of companies will have processes. It's not easy. It's a lot of work. Will you do the work to get the right people? It's a lot of work. Apart from it being a lot of work, sometimes for you to get the right people, you have to pay them what they are worth. And what they are worth is not what you can afford. So are you going to, for example, take a pay cut to pay the right person? Depending. So it is, for me, I think that the first thing is, when it comes to working with international organizations, every international organization is looking for excellence, period. No one is looking for mediocrity. If you understand that, then the question is, am I going to do the work, or what is required to ensure that I deliver excellently? And there are different areas or things, there are challenges that will come that will challenge that I want to deliver excellently. For example, it might be you going the wrong way to use maybe a cheaper material. But you have to decide if other Nigerians are using a cheaper material. If I have said it's excellent, I'm going to deliver. Even if it's going to cost me, I am going to do it. And that's where the work is. That's why for us, we repeat it. In every 3 months you hear me say it. I think my team, they are tired of it. Reputation outweighs profit. Because for you to deliver excellently, it would take from you, either it would take sleepless nights. So if you need to be on site on a Sunday to ensure you deliver to the clients, then you're there, right? And that's the way you can break from that stereotype. And the truth is, people would notice. So it's not the first day you enter into the market that an international organization will come and call you. They would see work A, work B, work C, work D, and then they would say, oh, yeah, that's it.
Yeah. So we have done a lot of commercial work for, big brands. We've done for HP, for IBM, for Mitsubishi, for Otis, and some others. And so I'll start with Mitsubishi. How did we get them? They're run by CFAO in Nigeria. And we were in Ajawa Estate. And the MD walks in to our showroom in Ajawa Estate. I was in my office and he was talking to my team. And he, ordered like some lunch coffee, lunch tables. And so when he left, I asked him, who was that? He's French. So, obviously he stood out. And he said, oh, he's from CFO, he wants to order lunch tables, blah, blah, blah. And then he has a meeting, he arranged a meeting. And so on the day he was going for the meeting, my team was going for the meeting, I said, look, courtesy demands that I should go. Even though I was in the office, he didn't ask to see me. He dealt with my team. So I went there, and I sent, he kept, we were waiting, I sent him a note and said, hey, I'm the MD of, the company of House Accessories at that time, and I'm here for the meeting too. So he called us up immediately, and we did those coffee tables. And then, lunch tables. And after that, we were talking about deposit, no deposit, we were debating. And we said, no, you have to put this percentage down. And he says, listen, I'm trying to give you a bigger project. He had already moved on to a bigger project because we had delivered that one. And now he wanted us to do that Mitsubishi. And so he was happy with that and he had tested us. And so then we did Mitsubishi. Then we did Otis. Then we did Suzuki. Then Mike Adenuga Center came on stream. Alliance Francaise was there, they're a French company. And so they paid. Mitsubishi paid, but brought us in and said, we will do the work. And he kept telling people, you see, this is made in Nigeria furniture. Very proud, boasting. That one of the people from that team called me aside and said, come, I want to know the truth. Does this man have a stake in your company? I said, I don't know him. I don't know where he lives. It's just at work that we have met. So, excellence. People want excellence. One of our core values at Dulo, not our wise, is that we believe that made in Nigeria things can be of the highest international standards. So it depends on what your mission is. When you form a company, you are building a nation. You have your language. You have your people. You have your culture. You get the chance to shape that. You get the chance to decide what you're going to do to change the Nigerian story. You can change that so that when they say, oh, Nigerian factor, and they encounter you, they can't say Nigerian factor again because you're being a good ambassador. So that's how it works. And then she talked about this issue of being willing to lose money. There's a project we finished, and first of all, it was a huge brand, and they didn't tell us that was the brand. And they just said, pick this, pick that. And then when they came to occupy the space, it didn't go with their brand ethos, right? They just picked the furniture. And I couldn't tell the brand, I wasn't really involved in the project, but then I got called in. I couldn't tell them that, well, they didn't tell us it was not the brand, blah, blah, blah. It was such a big brand that I said, listen, how can I finish work? And they will call someone else. That's how can we, Dulo, finish work? And they will replace us and redo the work. We said, we're not going down without a fight. So we called for a meeting. We said, we will redo this thing. We now know this is the brand. We're going to do the work, even if it's at a loss. And we now had to compete with others, but we did, and we delivered. We went and read their band manual, which is what we would normally do, but because they were being secretive, but we didn't blame them. We redid the work. Mainly, it was not at profit, but they were happy in the end. And I know they will call us again. So being willing to do those things and take a loss because you know that your work will speak for itself in the future is key.
Gentleman in the blue blazer.
Yeah, he's been putting up his hand.
All right, thank you. Good afternoon. My name is Architect Sabo. I'm really glad I'm here today. I just have two questions, basically. The first is, I know we've spoken a lot about relationship between yourself as a professional and your artisans, but my question is with respect to relationship with clients. Just a brief background. We run a multidisciplinary outfit, construction, design, and very recently the renovation market opened up for us, and kind of been niching down on that last two years, thereabouts. One of the major problem we've had is with client expectations. And there is usually a very huge gap between what you ideate as a designer and what clients want. And then it's your job to try to communicate, okay, we envision this is best for you, this is tailored to your needs, even things that they don't even know at that point in time would work for them. But we always face a lot of resistance, and then in the end it plays out, and obviously you can't go to your client and say, I told you, you see, yeah, stuff like that. So how do we ultimately bridge that gap? I know that there's some times that we've even had to insist on certain, okay, this is the way it works, unfortunately this is what you're asking us to do, we can't do this, we can't compromise on that. There are about two jobs we've even had to forfeit because of that, and it's not really something that we like. So is there a way to better communicate? When that happens, how can we bridge that gap where your vision is best portrayed to the client and they realize it's good for them?
Thank you. I think
I can answer that. Should I? Or...
Yes.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, let her go.
Client relationship, and I think it starts from the very beginning, from the very first phone call with your client. Yes, they come to you for a service that you provide, but ultimately it's they are the ones that will eventually live in that space. It's their space for you to design. So I think you need to look at from the very first phone call, and you need to listen and ask the right questions, so that you can understand the design direction. Most times as designers or as architects, we want to impose and say, oh, I know this is what I do, this is my, field. However, the most important is that your client is satisfied at the end of the day. So constant open communication in terms of the questions that you ask. For us at Viva Bella Designs, before we even proceed on to anything, we ask the client to actually send us visual images of what they love. What is your style? Because you can easily tell me your style is modern, contemporary, and at the end of the day, you're sending me traditional. So there can be kind of like a miscommunication there on what your client thinks and what you think that they need. So constant, communication, having a questionnaire can also help you maintain the details. Like we design for residential, mostly, and so we would ask you, where is your favorite hotel? What did you have a picture of your favorite restaurant where you dine? Or where's your favorite vacation spot? So those little questions that may not feel or you may not think is anything, is very important to ask. So first of all, I would say the first brief needs to be taken very seriously. And then as you continue to come up with the concepts and the ideas, you constantly check in with them at every phase. I think designing for people is a relationship, you know. Ultimately, you want to satisfy them. So simply put, just your process, you know, from phone call to selections to just involving them, you know, every step of the way could help, I think.
Thank you so much, Sandra. We have one final question.
Hey, I want to say thank you for sharing your thoughts on this matter. And my question is directed to Mrs. Nwamaka. So you spoke about how important it is to find the right people to work with. And my question is, do you have arrangements to, like for internship, to build these people into the right people? Because most times you don't find the right people, you have to work on them, train them. So do you have arrangements for that? That's one question. And the other one is, you mentioned your company is starting a design school. I would like to know when that is likely to start and what are the possible requirements to be able to come into that school.
Okay. Thank you for that question. What's your name? Deborah. Okay. Thank you, Deborah, for that question. So, do we take in turns? Yes, we do. In fact, there are a lot of people that have passed through House Esri's, now Dulo. We have a good relationship with some universities like Covenant. Nice. And we have people work, when they're doing this, it's SciWest. Yeah, we take them on. And we have them go through, we do the youth service. And we've gotten really good people from that. It is important to note that, like I said, that we have, at the end of the day, I think we've been a school, which is why we're saying let's formalize it. So that when you're training and teaching, doing it with a generosity of heart, not necessarily because this is going to benefit me, but because you know, the person wants to learn and you want them to gain that experience so that they can be stronger. So you can teach and they leave, but you can collaborate after. Of course, you prefer for them not to leave. I know typically in the past, within 6 months, our staff would double their value, and then it would become difficult to retain them. So someone will come and offer them double. In fact, someone offered one of my top staff 9 times what I paid them recently. Yes, and I paid quite well. But they stayed. They came and told me, and we talked about it. And, you know, we discussed it. But, you know, like, you can imagine how devastating that was when I heard it. Where will I start from? Will I say don't go? You know, if you say don't go, it means you don't mean well for the person. But you can imagine. So you train, and within a while, people go. So just having that notion that, you know what, it's fine, it's okay. If not, you get worked up. Now, regarding school, we hope to have it on stream either before the end of this year or early next year. We've already gotten the space, like I had mentioned. We're recruiting the faculty and trying to get it together. We'll start with one arm, and we hope that it will become a degree granting school, like an art school, because there are not art schools in, you know, like a design school. There's none in Nigeria, and there's a different field that it gives. Of course, we would like to start with interior design. Yeah, but there are other aspects that there's a need for. Okay. Thank you.
So I think we could very easily stay here. There's so much, I mean, literally we've had a cornucopia of knowledge, experience. I also think hope that our esteemed guests have given us here on this panel. I'd like to take the opportunity on behalf of everybody here to thank Wamaka, to thank Sandra, to thank Tumi for their absolute brilliant work. I'd also like to thank them for being exemplary women in design and architecture and setting the bar for many others. Thank you so much, ladies.
That's it?
It's a wrap.
Okay.
Thank you.
Great.
Thank you, everyone. We're back here tomorrow. We have another keynote masterclass at 11 tomorrow and another panel session at 2 o'clock tomorrow. And also we have the immersive kitchen again tomorrow afternoon. And tomorrow we're looking at the impact of technology on design. So if you're a tech bro or tech sis, please join us. Thank you so much. Thank you once again to our panelists and our moderator.